My name is Fiona Anderson, and I'm about to share with you how I transformed the darkest day of my existence into my most triumphant moment. Picture finding your fiancé in bed with your younger sister just 3 months before your wedding day. Now picture receiving a wedding invitation from them with a message reading, "Come witness what genuine love looks like." Most individuals would either avoid the wedding or arrive in tears. I chose neither path. I arrived wearing a breathtaking white gown with a secret that would shatter their flawless day and alter our lives permanently. The expression on my sister's face when she understood she had just forfeited $8 million. Absolutely priceless. But I'm moving too quickly. Before I proceed, please take a second to like and subscribe, but only if you truly appreciate this story. I'd be interested to know where you're viewing from and what hour it is there. Now, allow me to transport you back to where everything commenced. The murmurs began the instant I entered through the massive oak doors of St. Catherine's Cathedral. 200 heads rotated simultaneously, like a surge of astonishment flowing through the pews. I could detect the gasps, sense the shock emanating from every section of that holy space. Is that the ex? Why is she dressed in white? The nerve. I maintained my chin elevated, my footsteps measured and purposeful on the burgundy carpet. My Versace gown, yes, the one I'd initially purchased for my own wedding, embraced my figure flawlessly. The morning sunlight pouring through the stained glass windows captured the delicate pearl beading, causing me to glisten with each stride. There they stood at the altar. Sophia, my younger sister, clothed in ivory silk and lace, her blonde hair adorned with white roses. Marcus beside her in his charcoal tuxedo, the identical one he'd selected with me last year. His face lost all color when our gazes connected. The wedding coordinator, Mrs. Patterson, rushed toward me, her face crimson with alarm. "Miss Anderson, we weren't anticipating. My invitation indicates 2 o'clock, I stated serenely, displaying the pearl cardstock. I'm precisely on time. I slipped into a pew 3 rows from the rear, crossing my legs gracefully. My mother spun around from the front row, her mouth opening and shutting like a goldfish. Dad's jaw tightened so severely I could observe the muscle pulsing from 20 feet away. But it was Sophia's response that fueled my determination. She seized Marcus's arm, her flawlessly painted lips moving swiftly. Even from this distance, I could interpret the rage in her body language. Excellent. Let her question. Let her fret. The organ music intensified, trying to restore calm to the turmoil I'd generated simply by appearing. Father Michael cleared his throat, adjusting his spectacles as he looked between the bride and me. The strain in the cathedral was so dense you could slice it with a blade. What none of them understood, not Sophia, not Marcus, not even my parents, was that I possessed all the leverage. The small wooden box in my handbag wasn't simply any box. It held 6 months of forbearance, decades of strategizing, and the sort of justice that arrives wrapped in legal papers. The ceremony was about to commence, and I was precisely where I required to be. 2 weeks prior, I'd been organizing through mail in my downtown apartment when I noticed it. That envelope with Sophia's penmanship. My hands had shaken as I opened it, already understanding what I'd discover inside. The invitation was printed on pearl cardstock, the precise same design I'd selected for our wedding, the same typeface, the same phrasing. She'd even employed the same calligrapher. But it was the handwritten message tucked inside that made my blood freeze. "Dearest Fiona, I realize this might be challenging, but family should commemorate family. Come witness what genuine love looks like. We despise for you to miss it. Love always, Sophie and Marcus." I'd stood there in my kitchen reading those phrases repeatedly. The brutality of it, the deliberate hostility. She wasn't merely taking my fiancé. She was grinding my face in it, utilizing my own wedding arrangements as the weapon. That evening, I'd contacted my best friend Rachel. "Don't attend," she'd pleaded. "It's what she desires, to humiliate you." But Rachel didn't comprehend what I comprehended. She didn't know about the appointment I'd had with James Mitchell, my grandmother's attorney, just 1 week prior. She didn't know about the papers sitting in his office vault, awaiting the ideal moment. "I'm attending," I informed her, "and I'm going to provide them a wedding they'll never forget." I'd invested the following 2 weeks in flawless preparation, not for revenge. No, that was too elementary, too sentimental. This was about justice, about truth, about finally, after 28 years of being the obedient daughter, the silent one who never created disturbances, standing up and demanding what was legitimately mine. I'd even telephoned Marcus once. He'd responded on the third ring, his voice guilty and defensive. Fiona, I can clarify. Preserve it for someone who cares, I'd stated. I just wanted to ensure you're satisfied with your decision. I what? $8 million, Marcus. Hope she's worth it. I disconnected before he could reply. Let him speculate what I intended. Let him lose rest trying to decipher it out. Men like Marcus perpetually thought they were the most intelligent person in the chamber. He was about to discover differently. The invitation still rested on my coffee table the morning of the wedding, that cruel message visible beneath it. But I wasn't the identical woman who'd received it. I was someone more powerful, someone who'd finally discovered that being kind and being feeble weren't the same thing. Growing up as the older sister should have signified something. In most families, it did. But in the Anderson household, I was the preliminary draft and Sophia was the masterpiece. It commenced when we were children. While Sophia received a vehicle for her 16th birthday, a white BMW with a crimson bow, I received a lecture about accountability and a bus pass. You need to grasp the value of hard work, Dad had stated, while Sophia uploaded Instagram photographs from the driver's seat. At every family assembly, the comparisons were relentless. Sophia's so gregarious. Sophia illuminates the room. Why can't you be more like your sister, Fiona? I was the straight-A student who gained admission to MIT for architecture. Sophia scarcely graduated from state school with a communications degree. Guess whose graduation celebration was larger? You're too serious, Mom would comment, frowning at my sketches and blueprints. Men don't favor women who are too intelligent. Meanwhile, Sophia drifted through life on charm and attractiveness, claiming whatever she desired. My prom date, my position on the varsity tennis team. She didn't even participate in tennis until she witnessed me win districts. My internship at Preston Architecture until she persuaded them she'd be superior at client relations. But there was one individual who perceived through it all. Grandma Eleanor. You possess something Sophia will never possess, she told me once, her aged hands covering mine. Substance, patience, the capacity to construct something authentic. I thought she signified my architecture career. Now sitting in this cathedral, I comprehended she meant so much more. The pattern with Sophia was consistently the same. She'd observe something that made me content, determine she deserved it more, and claim it. Our parents enabled it every instance. Sophia's just spirited, they'd comment. You're the mature one, Fiona. Be the bigger person. I'd been the bigger person for 32 years. I'd smiled through the suffering, suppressed my fury, accepted the injustice. Even when she'd commenced flirting with Marcus at my own engagement celebration, I convinced myself I was imagining things. You're paranoid, Marcus had stated when I'd mentioned it. She's your sister. She's just being amicable. 3 months afterward, I discovered them in our bed, in the apartment I financed, on the sheets we'd obtained as an engagement present. And still, our parents had located a way to make it my responsibility. You work excessively. You should have devoted more attention to him. But today, the preliminary draft was about to become the final edition. Sophia's betrayals had a pattern, like a signature on a criminal scene. She perpetually desired what was mine. But Marcus, he was her masterpiece of cruelty. It commenced in high school with Jake Morrison. We dated for 6 months, my first genuine boyfriend. The night of homecoming, I discovered them kissing in his vehicle. He kissed me, she'd wept to our parents. I attempted to prevent him. Jake was prohibited from our house, and I was instructed to cease being so theatrical. Then arrived the Peton Scholarship. I'd labored 3 years for it, volunteering, maintaining a 4.0, constructing houses with Habitat for Humanity. The day before final interviews, my portfolio mysteriously vanished. Sophia located it later, water damaged and destroyed. She attended the interview instead, asserting she'd always been interested in humanitarian work. She obtained the scholarship. She never utilized it for anything humanitarian. But those were just practice runs compared to Marcus. We'd encountered at an architecture conference. He was charming, ambitious, everything I believed I desired. For 2 years, we constructed a life together. We had aspirations, a firm of our own, a house in the suburbs, perhaps children someday. Sophia had been residing in Miami then, working as an influencer. She returned home for Thanksgiving last year, witnessed my ring, witnessed my happiness, and something transformed in her eyes. I should have recognized then. By Christmas, she was messaging him constantly. Work stuff, she claimed. She didn't work in architecture. By Valentine's Day, she was appearing at our dinner dates. What a coincidence. By April, I was finding her earring in our bedroom. Marcus claimed I was insane, that it must have fallen out when she'd assisted us move furniture. 3 weeks afterward, I returned home early from a business trip. The sound that escaped me when I witnessed them wasn't quite human. But what wounded more than the betrayal was Marcus's first words. She's everything you're not, spontaneous, fun, exciting. All the things that signified not boring like Fiona. They relocated in together the following week. Our parents organized them a housewarming celebration. I wasn't invited, but Mom ensured to inform me how content they appeared. But here's what Sophia never grasped about taking everything from me. She never troubled to examine closely at what she was stealing. She witnessed the surface, the attractive fiancé, the ring, the wedding arrangements. She didn't observe the debt, the deceptions, the credit cards Marcus had established in my name. She certainly didn't observe what Grandma had witnessed or what was awaiting in that wooden box. The figures tormented me at night. $50,000. That's what I'd already expended on our wedding. Deposits I couldn't recover. The gown, the venue, the catering for 200 guests who would now be observing my sister wed my fiancé. But the financial blow was just the commencement. The morning following I discovered them, I'd entered into Brennan and Associates, where I'd labored for 7 years to find everyone staring. Someone had witnessed Marcus departing our apartment building with a suitcase. Someone else had witnessed Sophia's Instagram story from my bedroom. By lunchtime, I was the office controversy. Maybe you should take some time off, my boss, Richard, had proposed. Just until things settled down. That time off cost me the Waterfront Plaza project, a $40 million development I'd been directing for 2 years. They assigned it to Bradley, who'd been there 6 months. We need someone without distractions, Richard had clarified. The promotion I'd been guaranteed, gone. The bonus I'd been relying on to settle my student loans, evaporated. My professional standing in ruins. Meanwhile, our family's architecture firm, Anderson and Associates, the company Grandma Eleanor had constructed from nothing, was losing money rapidly. Poor investments my father had executed. Contracts that collapsed. We were 3 months from bankruptcy, though my parents kept acting like everything was acceptable. We need Sophia's wedding to be flawless, Mom had stated just last week. The Thompsons are attending and they might invest. The Thompsons, Marcus's affluent parents who had no notion their son was submerging in gambling debt. Dad had actually contacted me about it. You should attend the wedding, Fiona, for the family business. She stole my fiancé. You need to cease being so self-centered. This is larger than your emotions. I disconnected on him. Then I contacted my accountant and discovered precisely how severe things were. If the company collapsed, I'd forfeit everything. My inheritance, my portfolio, my entire future. That's when I genuinely started examining the documents James Mitchell had been attempting to show me. That's when I discovered what Grandma Eleanor had genuinely left behind. Your grandmother was a very intelligent woman, James had stated, sliding the papers across his desk. She knew precisely what she was accomplishing. The company was valued at $8 million if you knew where to search. And Grandma had ensured I would be the one searching. Dad actually stated I should have attempted harder to maintain Marcus satisfied. As if his satisfaction was my obligation, as if I was the one who'd failed. The social media devastation commenced within hours. Sophia had uploaded their engagement photograph on every platform, that flawless sunset shot on the beach. Her hand strategically positioned to display my grandmother's ring, the one Marcus had proposed to me with. The caption stated, "When you know, you know." Sometimes love discovers you in unexpected places. Can't wait to wed my best friend. Hashtag true love. Hashtag soulmates. Hashtag blessed bride. 500 likes in the first hour. Comments from our mutual friends, my friends, congratulating her. You two are flawless together. Love wins. So delighted for you both. Not one individual inquired about me. At work, I became invisible in a different manner. Conversation ceased when I walked by. Lunch invitations vanished. The annual gala I'd organized for 5 years. They requested Jennifer to assume control. We just think you need less on your plate right now, Richard had stated. My college roommate Ashley unfriended me after Sophia informed everyone I'd been emotionally abusive to Marcus. My book club dissolved rather than select sides. Even my yoga instructor proposed I might be bringing negative energy to class. The worst aspect was the sympathy. The few individuals who still communicated to me gazed at me like I was damaged. How are you holding up? They'd inquire, voices overflowing with false concern, hungry for drama to share at happy hour. Rachel remained faithful, but even she didn't comprehend. Just move on, she'd stated. Living well is the best revenge. But I wasn't interested in revenge. I was interested in justice. There's a distinction. Sophia's social media became a daily agony. I couldn't cease observing pictures from my vendors, my florist, my caterer, my venue. She was literally experiencing my wedding, just with a different groom. No, the same groom I'd selected. The one who was supposed to be mine. Tasting cakes today, with a photograph at Minette's Bakery where I'd already placed a deposit. Found the dress, at the same boutique where I'd purchased mine. Planning the honeymoon of our dreams to Italy. The precise itinerary I'd investigated for months. Each post was a blade twisted with accuracy. She knew I'd witnessed them. She was depending on it. But while she was uploading pictures, I was having different discussions with lawyers, with accountants, with individuals who'd worked with Grandma Eleanor for decades. Your sister has no notion, does she? James Mitchell had inquired during our third appointment. No, I'd replied, finally permitting myself a small smile. She's too occupied planning her perfect wedding. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, you comprehend this pain. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Before I reveal what was in that box, I want to ask you something. What would you have done in my situation? Would you have attended the wedding? Drop a comment below. I read every single one. And if this story resonates with you, please hit that like button. It really helps other individuals find these stories. Now, let me inform you about the conversation that altered everything. 3 days before the wedding, Sophia contacted. I recognized her ringtone Material Girl, because of course it was, and almost didn't respond. But something made me pick up. You're not actually attending, right? Her voice was sugar-sweet poison. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Silence. Then, Fiona, don't embarrass yourself. I'm not the one who should be embarrassed. Look, I realize you're hurt. Hurt? I laughed, and even I was surprised by how composed I sounded. I'm not hurt, Sophie. I'm grateful. Grateful. You did me a favor. Marcus is all yours. Another pause. I could practically detect her attempting to determine my angle. Just don't wear white or anything psycho. Wouldn't dream of it, I lied smoothly. She disconnected first. 5 minutes afterward, Marcus messaged. Can we talk? Then, I'm sorry about how things happen. Then, you deserve to know the truth. Then, it's about the money. That last one made me pause. He didn't know about Grandma's will. That was still sealed. So what money was he referring to? I didn't respond, but I screenshotted everything. The next morning, Mom appeared at my apartment unannounced. She stood in my doorway in her Chanel suit, appearing like she'd rather be anywhere else. You need to remain home Saturday. It's a free country, Mom. Fiona, please. Just this once, think of the family. Like Sophia thought of family when she slept with my fiancé. Mom's face tightened. That's different. They fell in love in my bed. You're being crude. I'm being honest. There's a distinction. She extracted her checkbook. Actually extracted a checkbook in 2024. How much will it take? Excuse me. For you to stay away. 5,000? 10. I stared at her, My own mother, attempting to purchase my absence from my sister's wedding to my ex-fiancé. Keep your money, I stated quietly. You're going to need it. What's that supposed to mean? Ask Dad about the Patterson contract. Ask him about the loans he obtained against the company. Her face went pale. How do you, goodbye, Mom. After she departed, I contacted James Mitchell. Is everything ready? The documents are authenticated and sealed. The board members have been notified to be on standby. And the timing? Whenever you're ready, Miss Anderson. Your grandmother ensured of that. I disconnected and gazed at the white Versace gown hanging on my closet door. Almost time. The family intervention arrived Friday night, less than 18 hours before the wedding. They ambushed me at my apartment, Mom, Dad, and Aunt Patricia, the family enforcer. This has gone far enough, Dad commenced, settling into my couch like he possessed it. You will not ruin your sister's wedding. I'm not ruining anything. I'm attending as invited. Aunt Patricia clutched her pearls. The entire extended family will be there. The Washingtons, the Clearys, the Brennans. What will people think? The truth. Don't be smart, Dad snapped. The company needs this wedding to proceed perfectly. Marcus's family has connections. Marcus is $200,000 in debt, I stated calmly. Did he mention that? The room went silent. Mom recovered first. You're lying. Gambling debts, credit cards, a failed business venture in Miami. I retrieved the files on my phone. I had a private investigator examine into it after I found them together. Wanted to know what kind of man I'd almost married. Dad's face was turning crimson. You had no right, I had every right. He established 3 credit cards in my name. I'm still fighting the fraud charges. This is precisely why he left you, Mom stated coldly. You're so controlling. He didn't leave me. He cheated on me with my sister, who's welcome to him. Stop being vindictive, Aunt Patricia stated. Family supports family. Where was that support when I needed it? You're the older one, the responsible one. Act like it. My phone buzzed. James Mitchell. Final review complete. Board members confirmed for emergency meeting Monday 9 a.m. I gazed at my family, these individuals who'd never once taken my side, who'd spent my entire life making me smaller so Sophia could shine brighter. I'll see you all tomorrow, I stated, standing up. 2 o'clock sharp. Dad stood too, attempting to loom over me. If you appear tomorrow, what? You'll disown me? Cut me off? You already did that when you gave Sophia my wedding vendors, my venue, my life. We're trying to rescue the family business. No, I stated, opening my door. You're attempting to rescue yourselves. There's a distinction. As they filed out, Mom turned back. Your grandmother would be ashamed of you. I smiled then, my first genuine smile in months. We'll see about that. After they departed, I opened the wooden box one more time, running my fingers over the legal documents inside. Grandma Eleanor's authentic will. The one she'd concealed from everyone except James Mitchell. Tomorrow everything would transform. Grandma Eleanor had passed away 6 months ago on a rainy Tuesday in January. I'd been the only one with her at the end, holding her papery hand while she struggled for breath. Patience, my dear, she'd whispered, her eyes still keen despite the morphine. The silent ones changed the world. At her funeral, Sophia had wept dramatically despite not visiting once during Grandma's 3-month battle with cancer. She'd even attempted to deliver a eulogy, but collapsed after 2 sentences. Everyone consoled her. Poor Sophie. She's so sensitive. I'd delivered no eulogy. I'd sat in the back, dry-eyed, remembering the authentic Eleanor Anderson, the woman who'd constructed an architecture firm from nothing in 1978, when women weren't supposed to manage businesses. 2 weeks after the funeral, James Mitchell had contacted. Your grandmother left specific instructions. The will reading is postponed for 6 months. Why? She stated you'd comprehend when the time was appropriate. I hadn't comprehended then. But as spring became summer and my life crumbled piece by piece, I started receiving calls from James, from Grandma's old business associates, from individuals I'd never heard of who knew things about our family's company that even Dad didn't know. Your grandmother was concerned, James had stated during our first genuine meeting, about your father's management, about your sister's influence, but mostly about you. About me? She stated you were the only one who comprehended what she'd constructed, the only one who cared about legacy instead of lifestyle. He'd shown me documents, incorporation papers, patent filings, property deeds. Anderson and Associates was valued far more than anyone knew. Grandma had been quietly purchasing back shares for decades, placing them in a trust. But there are conditions, James had clarified, very specific conditions. The primary one, the heir had to be unmarried or married to someone approved by the board of directors, Grandma's handpicked board, not Dad's golf buddies, someone financially stable, someone of good character. She knew, I'd stated, understanding finally dawning. She knew about Marcus. She suspected. She also knew about your sister's patterns. So if Sophia marries Marcus, she forfeits any claim to the inheritance. And if she's already married to him when the will is read, she can't contest it. James had smiled. Your grandmother was a very strategic woman. Now, the night before the wedding, I held the sealed will in my hands. 6 months precisely since Grandma's death. The timing was flawless. Thank you, I whispered to her memory, for seeing me, for believing in me. Tomorrow, patience would become power. The full scope of Grandma's plan was breathtaking. Anderson and Associates wasn't just a small family firm. It was the tip of an $8 million iceberg. Over 40 years, Grandma had quietly acquired patents, properties, and partnerships, keeping them in separate entities that only she controlled. The office building on 5th Street, owned by a trust. The revolutionary design software the firm used, she held the patent. The contracts with 3 Fortune 500 companies, personal relationships she'd maintained outside the official business. Your father never bothered to examine, James had clarified, spreading the documents across his conference table. He assumed he knew everything about the company because his name was on the door. But the conditions for inheritance were ironclad. The heir must be of Anderson blood, unmarried or married to someone of demonstrable financial stability, approved by the board of directors within 30 days of the will's reading, of sound moral character as determined by specific criteria. That last one was Grandma's masterstroke. She'd defined moral character in legal terms. No criminal record, no outstanding debts over $50,000, no history of marital infidelity with an engaged or married person. She genuinely thought of everything, I'd marveled. She had 6 months after your engagement to refine the language, James had stated. She was concerned about Marcus from the start, but she never stated anything. She believed in letting individuals reveal themselves. The board of directors was equally strategic. 5 individuals Grandma had worked with for decades, all with unshakable integrity. They'd been waiting, silent partners in her plan. What happens if no one meets the conditions? I'd inquired. The entire estate goes to the International Women's Architecture Foundation. And if Sophia contests, she can attempt, but marrying a man with over $200,000 in gambling debts who committed credit fraud against her own sister? James had shaken his head. No judge would override your grandmother's wishes for that. The wedding invitation on my coffee table seemed to taunt me. Come see what true love looks like. True love. Sophia thought she'd won because she'd taken Marcus. She had no notion she'd actually forfeited everything the moment she stated, I do. The wooden box sat beside the invitation, containing not just the will, but also Marcus's credit reports, the fraud documentation, and 3 years of Grandma's personal letters expressing her concerns about Sophia's character. Tomorrow, at precisely the appropriate moment, the truth would set everyone free, whether they wanted to be free or not. The wedding reception was in full swing when I arrived, cocktail hour before the ceremony. Sophia's idea of sophistication. I could hear the laughter floating from the garden where guests mingled with champagne and judgment. The seating chart by the entrance informed me everything I needed to know about my place in this circus. Table 19, the last table in the corner by the kitchen doors. I was seated with the catering staff's families and plus ones who'd been added last minute. Fiona, Brittany, one of Sophia's bridesmaids, appeared with a gaggle of others. They all wore matching blush pink dresses and identical smirks. We didn't think you'd actually attend. Wouldn't miss it, I stated smoothly, signing the guest book with a steady hand. They giggled behind manicured hands, already messaging furiously. Within minutes, The whisper spread through the garden like wildfire. I made my way outside where 200 guests pretended not to stare. The garden was decorated precisely as I'd planned for my wedding. White roses, string lights, even the same string quartet playing Pachelbel's canon. Then I witnessed him, Richard Brennan, CEO of Brennan Industries, our largest potential client. He was conversing with Marcus's parents, who were presenting their best display of wealth despite their son's debts. Fiona, Richard nodded, clearly uncomfortable. I didn't anticipate seeing you here. Family is family, I replied, accepting a champagne flute from a passing waiter. Across the garden, I spotted another surprise. 3 members of Grandma's board. They weren't supposed to be here, but each caught my eye and nodded slightly. James Mitchell had been occupied. The wedding coordinator announced it was time to take seats for the ceremony. As I walked past the head table, I detected Sophia's voice from the bridal suite window above. Is she genuinely here in white? God, she's so pathetic. Marcus's response was muffled, but I caught the words inheritance and mistake. I settled into my chair at table 19, surrounded by strangers who had no notion who I was. Perfect. I wanted to be invisible until the moment I wasn't. The string quartet shifted to the processional music. Guests turned toward the aisle, phones raised to capture the perfect moment. The bridesmaids commenced their walk, each one shooting me a look of pity or disgust as they passed. Then came Marcus, taking his position at the altar with barely a glance in my direction. His best man whispered something that made him laugh nervously. The music intensified, everyone stood, and there was Sophia, radiant in white, walking toward her destiny. She had no notion how correct she was about true love being revealed today. The ceremony proceeded like a beautifully orchestrated insult. Father Michael spoke about love, commitment, and honesty, while Marcus shifted nervously and Sophia beamed with triumph. Then came the personal vows. Of course, Sophia had insisted on personal vows. She went first, her voice carrying across the garden with practiced emotion. Marcus, you came into my life when I least anticipated it. You showed me what true love genuinely looks like. Some people, she paused, glancing directly at me, go through life thinking they know what love is. But genuine love, true love, can't be forced. It can't be scheduled or planned. It just happens. And when it does, nothing and no one can stand in its way. The crowd murmured appreciatively. Several individuals turned to gaze at me, waiting for a reaction. I kept my face perfectly neutral, my hands folded calmly in my lap. Marcus's vows were shorter, vaguer. Sophia, you bring excitement to my life. You're spontaneous, fun, everything I never knew I needed. He swallowed hard. You make me feel alive in ways I never anticipated. I noticed he never utilized the word love. Not once. Father Michael smiled benevolently. These 2 souls have found each other against all odds, overcoming obstacles to be here today. Obstacles. Is that what I was now? An obstacle they'd overcome? Marriage is a sacred bond, Father Michael continued. It requires honesty, trust, and mutual respect. It requires both partners to come together freely, without reservation or hidden agendas. I witnessed Marcus's jaw clench at hidden agendas. He knew about his debts. He knew what he was genuinely after. But did Sophia? Before we continue, Father Michael stated, I must remind everyone that marriage is not just a union of hearts, but also a legal contract, binding in the eyes of both God and law. Several of Grandma's board members leaned forward slightly. They knew what was approaching. If anyone here knows of any legal impediment to this marriage, any reason why these 2 should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace. The garden went silent. 200 individuals held their breath. Sophia turned slightly, gazing directly at me with a smirk that stated, I dare you. I stood up. Gasps rippled through the crowd like dominoes toppling. Sophia's face went from smug to shocked. Marcus went white as paper. I object, I stated, my voice clear and steady. On legal grounds? Father Michael blinked in surprise. Legal grounds? I walked forward, pulling the wooden box from my purse. I have documents that materially affect this union. The silence was deafening. This is the moment everything transformed. If someone had humiliated you like this, would you have remained silent? Or would you have done what I did next? I'm curious, what's the biggest betrayal you've overcome? Share in the comments if you're comfortable. Your story might help someone else experiencing the same thing. And remember, if you're enjoying this, that subscribe button is right there. Now, let me inform you about the most satisfying moment of my life. I object on legal grounds. My voice carried across the garden with a clarity that surprised even me. 200 faces turned in unison, a sea of shock and disbelief. Someone's champagne glass hit the ground with a sharp crack. Father Michael appeared like he'd never actually had anyone object before. Miss Anderson, this is highly irregular. I have documentation that materially affects this union, I stated, walking down the aisle with measured steps. My white Versace dress caught the afternoon light, and I heard someone whisper she wore white to her sister's wedding. Yes, I did. Fiona, sit down. My mother's voice cracked like a whip from the front row. I ignored her, reaching the altar where Sophia stood frozen, her bouquet trembling in her hands. Marcus appeared like he might flee at any second. These are legal documents, I stated, handing the wooden box to Father Michael. Authenticated and notarized concerning the estate of Eleanor Anderson and the conditions affecting any marriage within the Anderson family. Father Michael hesitated. I don't think, read them. James Mitchell stood up from his seat in the 5th row. I'm James Mitchell, attorney for the Anderson estate. Those documents are legally binding and time-sensitive. Sophia found her voice. This is ridiculous. You can't just... Actually, I can. I turned to face the crowd, my voice carrying clearly. 6 months ago, our grandmother Eleanor Anderson passed away. What most of you don't know is that she left behind a very specific will with very specific conditions. You're lying, Sophia hissed. The will was read. I was there. That was the preliminary will, James Mitchell stated, walking forward. The full estate documentation was sealed for 6 months as per Mrs. Anderson's explicit instructions. Today marks precisely 6 months since her passing. Father Michael opened the box with shaking hands, pulling out the thick legal documents. His eyes widened as he read. This states the entire Anderson estate, valued at $8 million, is left to Fiona Anderson, conditional upon her marital status. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I witnessed Richard Brennan lean forward, suddenly very interested. It states that the heir must be either unmarried or married to someone of demonstrable financial stability, approved by the board of directors, Father Michael continued, his voice growing stronger. It also states that any Anderson family member who marries someone with outstanding debts exceeding $50,000 or a history of financial fraud forfeits all claims to the estate. Marcus swayed on his feet. Sophia grabbed his arm, her nails digging into his sleeve. Furthermore, Father Michael read, any family member who engages in marital infidelity with an engaged person is permanently excluded from inheritance. The silence was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop in that garden. How much debt do you have, Marcus? I inquired conversationally. Last count was over 200,000, wasn't it? Plus the credit cards you opened in my name. The crowd erupted. Father Michael's voice echoed across the stunned garden as he continued reading from the will, each word falling like a hammer blow. The entire Anderson estate, including Anderson and Associates architecture firm, all associated patents, properties, and partnerships, valued at $8 million, is hereby bequeathed to Fiona Marie Anderson. Sophia's face had gone from red to white to an alarming shade of gray. That's impossible. The company is Dad's. The company is built on Grandma's patents, I stated calmly. Her properties, her partnerships. Dad's been managing it, but he never owned it. Grandma ensured of that. James Mitchell pulled out additional documents. Mrs. Eleanor Anderson retained 78% ownership through various trusts and holding companies. She was very specific about the conditions for inheritance. This is fraud. Marcus finally found his voice. You can't just, Mr. Thompson, James addressed him directly. Are you aware that opening credit cards in another person's name is a federal crime? Miss Anderson has chosen not to press charges yet. The crowd was buzzing now, phones coming out, individuals recording. This would be all over social media within hours. Father Michael cleared his throat. There's more. It states here that any marriage performed under false pretenses, specifically regarding financial status or with the intent to defraud, can be challenged in court. We're not married yet, Sophia shrieked. This doesn't apply. Actually, one of the board members, Mrs. Chun, stood up. The moment you announced your engagement publicly, you triggered the morality clause. Marrying your sister's fiancé while he was still engaged to her constitutes demonstrable lack of moral character as defined in Section 7, subsection 3. You knew. Sophia turned on me, her carefully styled hair coming undone. You knew about this the whole time. I discovered 2 weeks ago, I stated, right after you sent me that lovely invitation instructing me to come witness what true love looks like. But if you're married to Marcus, Sophia commenced desperately. I'm not married to Marcus. You are, or were about to be. I turned to the crowd. Marcus Thompson has over $200,000 in gambling debts, 3 maxed out credit cards in my name, and a failed business that he never disclosed. The board would never approve him, which means if I had married him, I would have forfeited everything, too. The implications hit Sophia like a physical blow. She staggered backward, her designer heels catching on her train. You did me a favor, Sophie, I continued. You saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. And in return, you get Marcus, debts and all, while I get the company, the properties, and the future grandma always intended for me. The prenup. Marcus suddenly shouted. Sophie, the prenup you signed. Everyone turned to stare at him. What prenup? Sophia's voice was barely a whisper. The one where you agreed to keep finances separate, Marcus stated desperately. Where you waived claims to each other's assets. You mean the one protecting your assets? Sophia laughed hysterically. What assets, Marcus? Your debt. The garden erupted into chaos. The unraveling happened in real time, like witnessing a building collapse in slow motion. Marcus grabbed Sophia's hands, his voice desperate. Sophie, we can work this out. She yanked away from him. Work what out? You're broke. You lied to me. I never lied. You stated you were successful. You stated you had investments. I do have investments in what? Poker games? She was screaming now, mascara running down her cheeks. You knew about the inheritance? You knew and you chose me anyway. Marcus's silence was damning. The truth was written all over his face. He'd thought Sophia would inherit, not me. He'd bet on the wrong sister. You used me, Sophia whispered, the realization hitting her. You couldn't get Fiona's money, so you thought you'd get mine. My parents had rushed to the altar, Mom attempting to salvage something, anything. This is a family matter. Everyone please, Mrs. Anderson. Richard Brennan's voice cut through the chaos. Is it true your husband has been managing a company he doesn't actually own? Dad's face went crimson. This is preposterous. Actually, James Mitchell interrupted. I have documentation here showing that Mr. Anderson has taken out several loans against company assets he doesn't own. That's fraud. The board will be pursuing legal action. The board? Dad sputtered. What board? I'm the president of a company you don't own, Mrs. Chun stated calmly. Your position is terminated effective immediately. Miss Fiona Anderson is the new CEO, pending board approval, which I can assure you she'll receive unanimously. The dominoes kept falling. Marcus's parents were backing away from the altar, his mother's face a mask of horror as she realized her son's debts were now her problem again. The Thompsons, who'd been so proud moments before, appeared like they wanted to disappear. The wedding is off, Father Michael announced unnecessarily. The altar appeared like a war zone. Sophia's bouquet trampled, Marcus's boutonniere crushed, the unity candle knocked over. This isn't over, Sophia snarled at me, her fairy tale princess image completely shattered. I'll contest this. I'll sue. With what money? I inquired quietly. You just quit your job to plan this wedding. Marcus is in debt. Mom and Dad are about to be investigated for fraud, and you signed a prenup waiving financial claims. The truth of her situation hit her like a sledgehammer. She'd given up everything for a man who was worse than broke. He was a liability. Grandma always stated you were special, Sophia stated bitterly. Her precious Fiona. No, I corrected. She stated I was patient. There's a distinction. James Mitchell stepped forward. The board meeting is Monday at 9 a.m., Miss Anderson. We'll need you there to formally accept your position. I nodded, then gazed at the stunned crowd. Thank you all for attending. I believe the reception is still paid for. My deposit, actually. Please enjoy the party. Then I turned and walked back down the aisle, leaving chaos in my wake. The legal machinery commenced turning before I even reached my car. James Mitchell was a maestro conducting a symphony of consequences. Mr. Thompson, he called out, stopping Marcus from fleeing. You'll need to stay. The police have some questions about those fraudulent credit cards. 2 officers had appeared. Apparently, James had anticipated this moment. They weren't arresting Marcus, not yet. But the questioning would be enough to destroy what was left of his reputation. This is entrapment, Marcus shouted. She set me up. You set yourself up the moment you committed fraud, Officer Williams stated calmly. We just need to verify some signatures. Meanwhile, the board members had cornered my father. Mrs. Chin was holding a tablet, scrolling through financial records. Mr. Anderson, can you explain this withdrawal from the company account? And this one? And these 17 others? Those were business expenses for your personal mortgage? Mr. Yamamoto, another board member, raised an eyebrow. That's embezzlement. I'm the president, Mrs. Chin corrected. We're the president of a company you never owned. The wedding guests had split into 2 camps, those fleeing the drama and those recording every second. I witnessed at least 3 individuals live streaming. #wedding crash. Grandma was probably already trending. Sophia tried one last desperate play. Wait, if Marcus and I don't get married, then Fiona can marry him and lose everything. I actually laughed. Sophie, I wouldn't marry Marcus now if he was the last man on earth. Besides, the fraud charges make him ineligible under Grandma's morality clause. He's toxic to any Anderson inheritance. You planned this, she accused. You knew I'd steal him. I suspected you'd attempt. You always want what's mine. But Marcus was a surprise. I didn't know about his debts until after I caught you together. Funny how things work out. Richard Brennan approached me as I reached my car. Miss Anderson, Brennan Industries would like to discuss a partnership with Anderson and Associates. Under your leadership, of course. I'll have my office contact you Monday, I stated professionally, though inside I was screaming with joy. This was the contract Dad had been chasing for 2 years. Your grandmother would be proud, he stated quietly. She always stated you were the future of the company. As I drove away, I witnessed the scene in my rearview mirror. Sophia sobbing on the altar, Marcus being questioned by police, my parents screaming at James Mitchell, and 200 guests capturing every moment for posterity. The reception hall was still set up, the cake still waiting to be cut, the band probably wondering if they should play. My perfect wedding turned into Sophia's perfect disaster. Justice had been served, and it was delicious. By Sunday morning, the video had gone viral. Bride's sister objects with $8 million will had 3 million views and counting. Someone had captured the entire thing, from my entrance in white to Sophia's complete meltdown. The comments were brutal, but mostly on my side. The sister got precisely what she deserved. Grandma playing 4D chess from beyond the grave. Imagine fumbling $8 million for a broke cheater. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing. Rachel contacted first. Girl, you're famous. Also, remind me never to cross you. But the genuine fallout was just beginning. Sophia's Instagram, where she documented every moment of wedding planning, became a graveyard of deleted posts and vicious comments. Her influencer career was over before it commenced. Marcus had disappeared completely. His social media went dark, his apartment was already listed for rent, and rumor had it he'd fled to his parents' house in Connecticut. The fraud investigation was ongoing, but my lawyer assured me he'd at least have to repay the money he'd stolen. The professional aftermath was even more dramatic. By Monday morning, 3 major clients had reached out to Anderson and Associates, specifically requesting to work with me. The story of a woman who'd quietly constructed her success while her family underestimated her. That was the kind of leadership they desired. Your grandmother was a legend, one CEO informed me. She constructed this company when women weren't supposed to run businesses. Appears like it's in good hands. The board meeting was a formality. Unanimous approval, just as James had predicted. I was officially CEO of Anderson and Associates, with full control of an $8 million empire I'd helped build, but never thought I'd run. Dad attempted to appear at the office Monday afternoon. Security turned him away. I'd had his access revoked. The investigation into his embezzlement was moving forward. He'd probably avoid jail time, but his reputation was destroyed. Mom contacted 17 times before I finally answered. How could you do this to your family? I didn't do anything, Mom. I just stopped letting you do things to me. Your sister is destroyed. She'll survive. Maybe she'll even learn something. She had to move back home. Then maybe you can finally teach her about consequences. The call ended with Mom crying about how I'd ruined everything. But for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty. I hadn't ruined anything. I'd revealed the truth. Tuesday's headline in the business section: Anderson and Associates under new leadership, stock soars. Wednesday's update: Marcus Thompson arrested for credit fraud. Thursday's twist: Sophia started a job at Starbucks. Friday's victory: Brennan Industries signed a $40 million contract with Anderson and Associates. Grandma had been correct. The silent ones do change the world. We just do it with paperwork instead of noise. 2 weeks after the wedding disaster, my family attempted reconciliation. They appeared in my new office, the corner suite that used to be Dad's, appearing like refugees from their former life. Dad had aged 10 years in 2 weeks. The investigation had frozen his personal assets. Mom's designer clothes appeared wrinkled, her perfect hair unstyled. And Sophia. She appeared hollow, like someone had scooped out her insides and left only the shell. We need to talk, Dad commenced, but his usual commanding tone was gone. About what? The embezzlement charges? The lawyers are handling that. About the family, Mom stated weakly. We're still family. Are we? Because family doesn't usually attempt to destroy each other. You destroyed us, Sophia finally spoke, her voice raw. You took everything. I took what was mine. What Grandma left me. What you tried to steal. I didn't know about the will, but you knew Marcus was my fiancé. You knew the wedding vendors were mine. You knew the pain you were causing, and you enjoyed it. Silence. For the first time in our lives, Sophia had no comeback. Grandma left me a letter, I stated, pulling it from my desk drawer. Want to hear what she wrote? They stared as I read. My dearest Fiona, if you're reading this, then my plan worked. I've watched your family diminish you for years. Watched them take your kindness for weakness. Your father is a fool who values appearance over substance. Your mother enables the worst in individuals. And Sophia. Sophia is what happens when beauty comes without character. But you, my dear, you have both strength and kindness. The company was always meant to be yours. I just had to ensure you got it without them destroying you first. Be patient. Wait for them to reveal themselves, then rise. Mom was crying. Dad appeared stunned. Sophia stared at the floor. She witnessed us, Dad whispered. All of us. She loved you anyway, I stated. But she didn't trust you. There's a distinction. What do we do now? Mom inquired. You figure it out without my money, without my help, without using me as your emotional support system. For once in your lives, handle your own consequences. You're genuinely going to abandon us? Sophia inquired. I'm going to do what you taught me, I replied. I'm going to put myself first. They left quietly, defeated. But I wasn't celebrating their downfall. I was just done being responsible for it. That night, I discovered another letter from Grandma, one James had saved for after the confrontation. Forgiveness will come in time, but boundaries come first. I'm proud of you. She'd known everything, planned everything, even this. 6 months later, my life was unrecognizable in the best possible way. Anderson and Associates had landed 3 major international contracts. We'd hired 50 new employees, including some of the best architects in the country, who wanted to work for a firm that valued merit over nepotism. The company was thriving under my leadership, and everyone knew it. The fraud charges against Marcus had stuck. He'd pleaded guilty to avoid jail time, but would be paying restitution for years. Last I heard, he was working at his uncle's car dealership in New Jersey, probably sweet-talking customers the way he'd once sweet-talked me. Sophia had surprised everyone, maybe even herself. After hitting rock bottom, she'd actually commenced rebuilding. She was still working at Starbucks, but she'd also enrolled in community college for business classes, paying her own way for the first time in her life. We hadn't spoken in months, but I'd heard from Mom that she was in therapy, finally dealing with years of entitlement and jealousy. My parents had downsized everything: the house, the cars, the lifestyle. Dad's embezzlement case had been settled out of court, but his reputation in the business world was finished. He'd taken a job as a junior consultant at a small firm. Mom had commenced working, too, as a receptionist at a dental office. They were learning at 60 what it meant to earn rather than take. They ask about you. Rachel informed me over lunch. Your mom comes into the salon sometimes. She always asks how you are. And I tell her you're thriving because you are. She was correct. I'd commenced dating again, carefully, with boundaries firmly in place. His name was Daniel, a civil engineer who'd never heard of my family drama until our third date. He'd listened to the whole story, then stated, "Your grandmother sounds like she was brilliant, and so are you." He was kind, stable, debt-free, and completely his own person. The board would definitely approve. Not that I was thinking that far ahead. I'd learned not to rush into anything. The most unexpected development was the letter I'd received from Sophia last week. "Fiona, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but therapy requires me to make amends. Not for forgiveness, but for accountability. I was cruel to you. I took everything I could because I was jealous of everything you were. You were smart, talented, hardworking, everything I wasn't. Instead of attempting to be better, I attempted to make you smaller." Marcus was never about love. He was about winning, about proving I could take anything from you. I see now how pathetic that was. You gave me a gift at that wedding, though you didn't mean to. You showed me who I genuinely was. It was ugly, but it was necessary. I'm working on being better, not for you, not for the family, but for myself. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know. Sophia. I'd read it 3 times, then filed it away. Maybe someday we'd communicate. Maybe not. But for now, boundaries were more important than bridges. Grandma's portrait hung in my office now, watching over the empire she'd constructed, and I was expanding. Sometimes I conversed with it, informing her about contracts won and challenges overcome. "You taught me the most important lesson," I stated to her picture. "That being kind doesn't mean being weak, that patience isn't the same as passivity, and that sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's just living your truth and letting others face theirs." The company was mine. The future was mine. And for the first time in my life, I was precisely where I belonged. That's my story of how I transformed betrayal into triumph without raising my voice or throwing a punch, just patience, preparation, and perfect timing. If you've made it this far, you're amazing. Thank you for listening. What boundaries do you need to establish in your life? Let me know in the comments. If this story inspired you, please share it with someone who needs to hear that justice doesn't always come with drama. Sometimes it comes with documents. Subscribe for more stories of silent victories. Until next time, remember, the best revenge is a life well lived.